Why don't we rent a video tonight?
Yeah, can we please?
On a weeknight?
Yeah, come on, Mom. It's okay.
Sure. Come on. Let's throw caution to the wind.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
Welcome to Vericon Video, a sometimes weekly show where we relive forgotten and unforgettable movies that once lined the shelves of video stores everywhere. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joseph.
And before we get started, we wanted to tell you briefly a little bit about our little trip to the Alamo Draft House in Raleigh for an event called VHStival. And it was a 2-day event. We went for the first day. I went back for the second, but that's when I started to get sick, and that's why we didn't have an episode last week. But we saw some pretty cool movies. We saw Video Violence, Remote Control, Stand By for Tape Backup, which was pretty neat, and the WNUF Halloween special, which was especially fun. Met some cool people. Jeff Lieberman, who directed Remote Control, and he was just hanging out, eating a burger most of the time. But he was selling copies of the DVD and Blu-ray for Remote Control, and we were wanting to get a picture with him, and I was a little nervous.
What a guy!
But Joseph just went for it.
I went for it. I had to take the risk.
Yeah, and he gave you a hard time.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, you want it for $125? I just stood there looking at him like, "Oh, I hope this is a joke." And yeah, then he was like, "Who are you kidding?"
Yeah, just kidding. We talked a long time about how people, especially of celebrity status or in the industry, how they charge for autographs and for photographs. Just last week I saw an advertisement for, I think it was the San Antonio Comic-Con, and great lineup, but the big person that was there was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my gosh.
And you could purchase a photo opportunity with an autograph for $1,200.
What?
Yeah. The others were $700, $500.
Holy
Rick
crap.
Moranis was there for like a Spaceballs thing. Anyway, got some cool stuff. Got a cool swag bag. We were VIPs. Got some cool T-shirt, posters, some trading cards, a little hand sanitizer from Lunch Meat. Really cool.
It was pretty lit. Felt like we were on top of the world with that VIP
Oh yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
That was awesome.
Well respected. Just flashing that badge everywhere.
Yeah. Easy access into the theater, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, don't have to look at me.
I went back to the Alamo last week to see the 4K restoration of The Fog, which was pretty cool. It looked great. I'd never seen The Fog before, but it was great fun. It was campy fun. So before we move on, remember to subscribe. Go on to iTunes and leave us a review. Rate the show. We would appreciate it. That helps us in our rankings across all podcasting apps. So, without further ado, today we're visiting 1999 Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton's Vision for and retelling of the classic story by Washington Irving. We're thrust into familiar Burton territory, whose last project was released 3 years earlier, which Mars Attacks, and follows Johnny Depp in the lead role as he uses his unusual investigative tools and techniques to unravel a small-town conspiracy. So light the fireplace, turn off the lights, and get cozy, because Halloween isn't over yet, even though it's November this. There will be blood and lots of it, and heads will roll. So sit back, relax, and welcome.
Welcome to the Cafe 80s, where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Okay, good evening, America, and welcome aboard Apollo 13.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you're enjoying it. I think you will.
Constable Ichabod Crane is summoned to Sleepy Hollow to investigate a series of beheadings thought to be the work of the Headless Horseman, and soon finds that the hospitable townfolks are hiding secrets that may have unleashed the Horseman on the people of Sleepy Hollow. We've got an all-star cast here. We've got Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, Michael Gambon, Ian McDermott, Michael Goff, Jeffrey Jones, and with Christopher Walken as the Horseman with a head.
With a head, yeah.
And then
with teeth, too.
Yeah. Got the sharp teeth and bright blue eyes. And Ray Park as the Horseman without a head. Kevin Yeager, he came up in last week's episode, Child's Play. He wrote the screen story for this and did the special effects, and he co-produced it as well. He had the idea of adapting the story while working on Tales from the Crypt sometime in '93, I think. He collaborated with Kevin Andrew Walker to develop a treatment that transformed Ichabod Crane from the school teacher that we know from the original story and cartoon to a police constable. They pitched it to various studios, and the flame kind of died until Paramount showed interest in '98 and got the ball, or heads, rolling again. Burton was suggested as director, and once he signed on, the rest is history. The film cost an estimated $100 million to make, and the production value reflects it. Drawing inspiration from the Hammer films and having an all-star ensemble cast, Sleepy Hollow was destined to hack its way back into the mainstream and earn its success. So Johnny Depp, his character Ichabod Crane in the movie, he has this, just to give you a little bit of trivia here, he had this sickly-looking horse named Gunpowder. Its real name was Goldeneye, and after the movie was over, he heard that poor Goldeneye was going to be put down, and so Johnny Depp adopted it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
He's a weird guy, but he does have some passion in there somewhere.
Yeah, he has some heart.
There was a great interview with Christopher Walken talking about this movie, and he said that he didn't actually know how to ride a horse. He's like, you want me to play the Headless Horseman? I can barely ride, you know? And so all the scenes where he's on the horse, that's a fake horse. They just cut it together very well with another stunt.
That's amazing.
I know.
Hashtag Hollywood.
Yeah, right. But the entire town of Sleepy Hollow was built from scratch. That has rooms, floors, stairs. It was populated by ducks and geese and all kinds of things. And really, it looks great on film.
It does.
It's a shame that they completely dismantled it after production. Just keep that around.
All that effort.
Like they did with the Lord of the Rings movies. You know, you keep the Shire. Make some money off of it.
You'd think.
You would think. The Western Woods, though, those were built on a soundstage. So everything, like the weather, the light, the fog, and all that could be more controlled. And even in the movie, if you really look at it, it looks kind of weird, kind of fake, a little artificial. We got some Star Wars vets in here. Ian McDiarmid, who played the Emperor. Ray Park played Darth Maul, and then Christopher Lee, who played Count Dooku.
Right.
Just a few little tidbits there. Yeah, some fun facts there. So let's just get on the road. Let's walk through old Sleepy Hollow and see what we find. So we open with the signing of the document. We later learn it's a last will and testament. Peter Van Garrett, played by the great Martin Landau, is he's being transported in a carriage at night, and of course it's just dark, muggy, stormy night. And he's got his little wig on. This is like 1799, I think.
I mean, it's definitely comfortable.
Oh yeah. Just
nice little head pad. Let's protect thy hair.
And he sees this Tim Burton. I just say Tim Burton scarecrow. That it's something straight out of A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, of course.
And the carriage driver gets his head lopped off, and Landau looks out the window and up, and his mouth is agape. He's horrified that this headless body is still sitting, holding the reins of the carriage. So he jumps out, runs through a cornfield, and he happens upon the scarecrow, and he's scared at first, and then he's relieved it's just a scarecrow. And then I think he hears
rustling,
like a horse or something.
He hears a horse, right?
Or that shing, pulling out a sword or an axe. And so he loses his head. Lots of heads.
Lots of heads. Yeah. There's a lot of heads.
We're going to be getting to some really bad head puns.
I mean, might as well go into brain anatomy if we want to talk about heads this much. I mean,
we might as well. I mean, Kevin Yeager did say that they went out of the way to really make the gore like at the like of the neck of the heads to look as anatomically correct as possible with like the windpipe and everything.
Right. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. So we cut away. We're in New York, 1799. And I don't know if he's like the chief or something, but he's standing up there just looking regal, and they're carting bodies past him, and he'll look at it and just like, burn it. He's so disinterested. Meanwhile, Ichabod Crane discovers a body. I think it's the Hudson River. He brings it in to the chief or whatever. He's like, I insist on there being a proper examination of the body. You know, we need to start using up-to-date forensic science.
All about the evidence.
All about the evidence and using your head.
Mm-hmm. Common sense.
It's kind of confusing. He goes before like a court. We don't really know why. Just that he's, I guess, has been defiant and has been pushing back against the way things are done.
Or like legislation. And just the whole law of how criminals are condemned.
Yeah, because he makes a comment about, you know, I believe in justice and using up-to-date science and doesn't like that people are convicted, tortured, sentenced to death just based on
assumption
or a forced confession. Like the body that he discovered in the river, the chief just said cause of death is drowning. If the body's found in the water, it's drowning. He's like, oh, well, I need to examine the body. That kind of defiance, I guess, got him in trouble. So he had two choices. So Christopher Lee is the judge, and he says you can cool your heels in a cell, or
there is a town upstate, a farming community called Sleepy Hollow. Have you heard of it?
and Crane is told that three people have been beheaded. Go take your little experimentations there and report back. You know, will you do this? And he really doesn't have much of a choice.
Basically, go have fun. We don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, he's completely been disgraced and is seen as a joke. So Crane packs up with his stuff and he frees a bird that he had in his cage, which I thought was unusual. Was he anticipating never coming home again?
I guess, because, you know, bye-bye birdie. So.
Maybe it was a nod to like his idea about justice and freedom and releasing this creature from its prison, or
right. It's just
maybe we're reaching here. But
I don't know. I mean, I guess he was like, I've never been to this place before. I might get my head chopped off. So
yeah,
might as well not have a burden of a nice little cardinal just sitting around chirping all day long.
The birds, there's a lot of birds in this movie.
There's a very lot of, especially
even Christina Ricci's character says something about liking cardinals, and who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? That's not the plot of this movie.
Her character is very annoying in this movie. We'll get to her shortly. So he gets in the carriage, and main titles, he's on his way to Sleepy Hollow. And meanwhile, he looks at his hand, and we see these little spots, these little indentations, little pinpoint scars. And we're like, I wonder what that's all about.
Curiosity.
And we'll be coming back to that later on. Doesn't really add much to the story.
At all.
I will say, and I was telling Joseph this earlier, I watched this movie so many times when I was a kid. I own this movie. I watched it religiously, listened to the director's commentary over and over again. And then rewatching it for the podcast, I wondered what it was about this movie that really got my attention. Because it's an hour and 50 minutes. It has a very convoluted conspiracy plot. There's just a lot going on with family trees and all that sort of thing. But I'll bitch and moan about that some more later. So Sleepy Hollow is this creepy little village. It's dark. It's always cloudy.
It's like you're in Ireland, but in the Dark Ages, and you just can't escape the clouds. You know, there's no sunshine. There's no sunshine. And it's always black. Like, there's just black dirt.
Yeah.
Where's the plants?
Everything's dead.
Can I get some vegetation?
It looks like it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon all the time.
All the time. All the time.
It's always twilight. So he arrives at the Van Tassel estate where they're having a party. He's going to be boarding there while he's in town. We see Katrina Van Tassel doing poor British accent. Johnny Depp's isn't all that great either, but it's passable. And they're playing this little game. She's blindfolded, and she comes up to him and grabs his face. And, is it Theodore? He's like, no, I'm just a stranger, miss. And we'll have a kiss on account, and kisses him. And then, meanwhile, her beau, Brom,
what a guy,
played by Casper Van Dien, is jealous and says, "Oh, what's your name? You haven't told us your name yet." And just being an asshole. And then Michael Gambon plays Baltus Van Tassel. He pops up. Oh, no raised voices here. You know, he tells Crane that you are welcome here, sir, even if you are selling something. And Crane's just very matter of fact. I've been sent here from from the city. I'm with the police. Been sent to investigate. He looks visibly nervous. Baltus does, as does other faces in the crowd. He's exchanging these glances. So immediately we know there's some kind of
conspiracy going on here.
And they're really selling it with lots of emotion, expressions in the face. So he goes up to his room, he unpacks, goes to meet with Van Tassel, and he's joined by the 4 town elders, I think they were later referred to as. He's joined by Dr. Thomas Lancaster, played by Ian McDermott, Reverend Steenwick, played by Jeffrey Jones, Magistrate Samuel Phillips, played by Richard Griffiths, and James Hardenbrook, a notary, played by Michael Goff, who I remember as Alfred from Batman. Yes. So Crane lays out the scenario. He's pacing around, eyeing everybody. They're looking suspiciously and nervously at each other. They tell him that not only were they decapitated, but that their heads were taken by the Headless Horseman, taken back to hell, all that sort of thing. And Crane is still of the mind that it's, of course, a flesh and blood person. Even while let me tell you a little story, Constable, about the Headless Horseman. He was a Hessian mercenary who rode a giant black steed named Daredevil. Had his teeth filed down, this ferocious appearance. And then about 20 years prior to the main narrative, the horseman was in the western woods. And he's wounded by soldiers, or his horse is wounded, I should say. And then he takes off running into the woods, and then he sees these 2 little girls, and you got this creepy Christopher Walken with his bright blue eyes, his electric blue eyes, and his filed teeth.
Filed teeth.
And that wig, the jet black hair he's got. I mean, his armor and everything looks really, really cool. And he looks pretty cool too, but
it's just the face. I mean,
I can't even call it like a Christopher Walken look because he is so not Christopher Walken in the role.
Right.
From film to film, he's basically playing himself.
Yes.
Just doing that thing.
I mean, he has it's a very standoutish kind of portrayal with Walken. Like, it's Walken when you see Walken. In this movie, I had no idea what was going on.
It almost takes me out of the movie because I'm too busy thinking about that's Christopher Walken, and he's not being Christopher Walken.
Same. I'm like, where's the Hairspray father?
I think the first movie I saw him in was Batman Returns. He played Max Schreck. But one of my favorite lines of his is from Wedding Crashers.
Oh my gosh!
He's talking to, I think, Vince Vaughn or Owen Wilson's character, and they're like on a bridge or at a marina. And Christopher Walken's son is this really weird, like artistic, creepy guy. And he's a poet or something, and his son says, "Death, you are my bitch lover." And Christopher Walken's just like, "That's right, son. You tell that mean ocean." It's so absurd, but it's one of the things that stand out for me. During this flashback with Baltus narrating, Walken, the horseman sees these 2 girls, and he says, "Shh," and one of them breaks a stick. And so the soldiers run over and find him, and they fight. They cut his head off. They bury his body, and now he's back. The Reverend, so ironic, played by Jeffrey Jones, who got into a lot of trouble in the 90s for child pornography, and which really ruined his career. And it was really unfortunate because I really liked him as an actor. I like him as an actor, and he was in some of my favorite movies in the 80s, like Beetlejuice and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Who's Harry Crumb. And so he, as the Reverend, says, basically, you have all this science stuff, but the Bible is the only book you need to read. That's where it's at.
All the answers.
All the answers are in here.
We talk about heads being cut off in the Bible. Let's look at the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just strange because at the time a very conservative, puritanical type of society.
Right, very much so.
But meanwhile, they're engaged in all this other nefarious stuff, and
the spiritual world, as Crane saw, as just horse crap, basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's totally rational about it. He approaches it very much like the supernatural, the paranormal. All of that is just beyond belief.
Seeing is believing, basically.
Seeing is believing. So we see this watchman at night, and he's in his little tower, and he's watching out for the horsemen, and we hear hoofbeats, there's a gunshot. He loses his head.
Yeah. Long story short.
Long story short, the next morning, Crane gets his horse, gunpowder, and there's a gunshot. Someone says, the horseman's killed again. And we're off. He mounts gunpowder, and away we go. We're going to go check it out. And the usual suspects are there, standing by the body when Crane arrives. They're just standing around, not really doing anything.
No, they're just like, oh, look who it is.
Yeah.
You know?
We were waiting for you,
yeah.
These town elders. And the doctor's just kind of looking around the body. He's not even touching it. He's just
they're just looking at it. Like,
and
how's that going to help anything?
He's a bad doctor.
Yeah.
Let's just get that out there right away. We see him do no doctorly stuff in this movie.
my ass.
It's like, what are your qualifications? I guess as long as you say you're a doctor, that's qualification enough.
The professional school of wannabes.
It's one way to, and especially in a small town or village, to make some money is to. People are going to get sick. People are going to need medicine or something mauled or cut off.
I know how to feel foreheads. Is that okay?
That's probably the extent of all this guy can do.
Right.
That's the extent of his medical training. We find out that this is the lookout, the watchman, Jonathan Masbeth. And there's a little wit here when Crane asks the doctor, "Did you move the body?" Well, yes. So, you should never move the body. And he says that often in cases of beheadings, the head is removed to prevent the body from being identified. And Baltus is just like, but we know this was Jonathan Masbeth. Precisely. So why was the head removed? Crane gets his little bag of goodies out. He takes some powder and sprinkles it by the severed neck. There's a chemical reaction. So there was a powerful singular thrust to the neck. And then he takes out these really cool glasses with this obnoxiously large magnifier on it. It telescopes it out. He's examining the neck. A little bug crawls out of it, startles him. He's a little squeamish for an investigator.
Especially bugs, though.
Doesn't like the bugs.
Oh, and especially in this scene, he just immediately jumps up, looks the other way, as to not have anyone notice.
He quickly recomposes himself,
yes.
but he's visibly squeamish and nervous,
yes.
and tries to hide it. He says that the wound, you can tell by looking at it, was instantly cauterized, but there's no scorched flesh, as though the weapon was very hot. Then next we see Steenwick presiding over Masbeth's funeral. Masbeth's son, young Masbeth, wants to help, goes up to Crane and says, you have no one to help you, but let me come along. Crane's like, nah,
brother.
Nah, your mother needs you more than I. And he says that his mother had died, so he's an orphan now. And Crane just says, okay, well, sorry. And he walks up to the magistrate, who's over in the cemetery, knocking back some whiskey or some hard liquor of some kind. Phillips tells Crane that there are actually 5 victims, 5 bodies, 4 graves. And he just leaves him with that little mystery. And then Crane changes his mind. He goes back, tells young Masbeth, okay, you can help. Come see me in the morning. So he's looking at the graves, the freshly buried graves, and so they exhume the body of Widow Winship.
To get it out for operation.
Right, yeah. And
so he could look at it, yeah.
The doctor is just chilling in his office. Crane bursts in on the doctor. He says, we need to operate immediately. The doctor says, operate? She's dead.
Freaking
bad doctor.
What a bad doctor.
But Crane is more interested in the stab wound to the stomach, and so he thinks that is something unusual, and it's an outlier from the rest of the deceased. So Crane does an autopsy and discovers that she was with child. The townspeople are visibly upset about it. Like, what have you done to her? And like defiled her body. You heretic. I'm like, shut up, Reverend. We know you're bad.
Just go read your Bible.
Yeah. So Crane, later, he's on gunpowder at night. He's crossing this little covered bridge, and he hears sounds. He hears hoof prints and everything. He gets spooked. And then, the Headless Horseman bursts out with a flaming jack-o'-lantern and chases him through the woods. So this is a little homage to the cartoon, the animated film. And the horseman hurls this jack-o'-lantern at Crane, and it knocks him out, hits him in the head, and it bursts. The horseman rides away, but then the horseman trots up to these other people, and we see, it was just Brom wearing
jackass.
the Headless Horseman.
That's a pretty good throw by a pumpkin, though.
Yeah, and something that bothered me about the hurling pumpkin is as it's moving towards the camera, it's shaking.
Yeah.
Like it's wobbling, like it's on a string or something, or like somebody is pushing it towards the camera.
Right. It was obvious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with it. Let's just move on.
Just accept.
There's so much we just have to accept. So while Ichabod is knocked out, he's having the first of many to come dreams, flashbacks, memories of himself as a young boy and dancing with his mother. And there's flashes of this church. And then his mother is burning flowers in the fireplace and doodling in the dirt with her finger. It gives him this little spinning thing. It's this little disc with with the strings on either side. On one side is a bird cage, the other is a cardinal. And when you wind the twine or the rope together, the thing will spin, and it looks like that the bird is in the cage.
Right.
And we gotta have a bird in here, so
gotta have the bird.
All about birds and heads in this movie. And we see this creepy guy in the window. He's got the wig on, and there's a flash of lightning, real scary looking guy. Then Crane wakes up, and he goes down to the parlor, the den, the living area, whatever. Anyway, he's by a fireplace. And Katrina Van Tassel is there, Christina Ricci, looking very, very pale. And she's reading a book. She tells Crane that the Van Tassel estate is on property originally owned by the Van Garretts, and her dad was giving an acreage and then prospered. And we don't really know what to do with this yet. We've got the Van Garretts and the Van Tassels. And
somehow they're connected.
Yeah, we know there's a connection, but as an audience, do we really care?
Do we like...
We want the horseman.
Yeah, let's get some action with blood, Can we get the axe, chop up some heads? Maybe we can see some blood spurting. Johnny Depp being scared, oh my gosh, everyone's ruined because this is a great Halloween movie. But no, you have to go into family tree business.
Sure, they need to beef up the source material, to give it some more layers or depth.
Or like background stories for family. Right. Family,
we don't need
how it got started.
Two entire families involved in this, and an entire town, and these town elders. In this big conspiracy.
Especially when the Van Garretts are dead.
I found myself just having to draw a family tree to make the connections between, to have all these things fit together.
Because eventually, or I should just call him Crane, just bless. Yeah. Crane opens up this book that uncovers the family tree.
Yeah.
But that's the only time we see it.
Right. and even if you freeze frame it, it's in this really eloquent like script, and you can't even read it. No. So we just see, family tree, Van Garretts, Van Tassel, there's a connection.
That's
then
all
we're moving on.
Yeah, whatever.
Katrina Van Tassel gives Crane this little book of spells and says, keep it close to your heart for protection.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, that's going to come back. So they ride out. I guess they stayed up all night. So it's morning. They visit the ruins of her childhood home. She starts doodling in the dirt. It's the same design that her mother doodled by the fire in his dream, or in his memory. Says she likes cardinals, etc. He gives her the spinny thing for some reason, which, if that's something he's had since he was a kid, that was given to him by his mother, who is dead.
It means a lot. And
just give it to this girl you just met?
All right, bud. I guess you trust her that much. Just you might be overwhelmed by her pale beauty.
She is exceptionally pale in this. She is almost albino.
Yes.
She's not only very fair, has a fair complexion, but her hair is very, very light. She always wears white dresses and stuff.
I was about to mistake her for Dracula's second wife. I mean... Let's be honest.
So he shows her how it works. He winds up the twine and pulls it, and the little disc starts spinning. And just the optical illusion, but she says, you can do magic. Teach me.
What the hell? I don't understand.
She's been casting spells and stuff, and she sees
that and thinks it's magic?
Yeah.
What?
He goes on and on about the illusion of truth and everything. So the town elders, we see them arguing in the window, and there's a moment where Jeffrey Jones looks out the window to see if anybody is looking. It's the moment in a contemporary movie where they would draw the blinds or pull the shade. But this is 1799 and they don't have those yet, so he just walks back to the argument. And Phillips, the magistrate, leaves. He's running away with his horse and things. And Crane confronts him, and Phillips tells him that the widow had told him that she was pregnant. And he does know the father's name, but he won't tell Crane, or rather he doesn't get the chance to, because the horseman rides out, decapitates the magistrate, and the head just rolls down between Crane's legs, and the horseman approaches Crane, and Crane thinks he's about to lose his head too, but then the horseman just stabs the head and then rides off with it.
He probably thought he was going to get his balls chopped off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was close.
He was close.
Just a few inches away.
Jeez.
The horseman has really great aim for having no head.
Honestly.
And so he faints, first of many times. I love this scene, though. Like the next morning, everybody's gathered outside of his room, and they say that he won't come out. And they finally go in, and Crane is in bed, and he's like in the corner, clutching his bed sheet. He said, "It was a headless horseman." "Yes, we know. We told you." "No, you don't understand. It was a horseman, a dead one, headless." "Yes, we know. That's why you're here." It's all true. He faints away again. Has another dream of his mother dancing over the woods. It's really bright and fanciful or fantastical. He's the little boy again. We get a new image now. He's spying on his mother and father, or in the credit, he's just called Lord Crane. He grabs her by the hair and is like forcing her to look at the drawing that she did, and he's pointing at it. And I think he might point at a Bible or something too. So I guess it's like, okay, well, you've been involved in witchcraft, and so you're going to be punished for it. There's a little image, like a really quick flash of like some kind of torture device, like an Iron Maiden. I don't know what else to call it, but it's just it's one of those things where it looks kind of like a sarcophagus, an upright sarcophagus that they would put you in that has, I guess, spikes or something
that goes in,
and there's like a little window for you to look out of, I guess.
For some reason,
I don't understand all that stuff. That's just beyond me. It's
too complex.
It's too complex, and let's just all get along.
Oh, think about these dark ages.
So Crane wakes up and he comes down and says he's faced his fears and he needs people willing to go with him into the western woods to look for the horseman's grave. Who's with me? Nobody volunteers.
Nobody,
except young Maspeth, who is probably 12.
What's this
13?
Kid got to lose,
Yeah, I mean, he's an orphan now, so might as well. And I mean, he did lose his father to the horseman, so he does have some vested interest. So he and Crane ride out on horseback to the western woods, and Maspeth tells him that a week before the murder, there was an argument between the Van Garretts, like the Lord Van Garrett and his son. Are you following this? I said, argument between father and son, and so we're, okay, which father and son, which of the Van Garretts.
And apparently it's just this whole scene.
As a viewer, I'm already frustrated because I just immediately dismiss it because I can't
concentrate. I can't focus. You can't follow it. Right. Because we always keep going back to this flashback of what really happened. What happened?
I can understand that this movie is a mystery. So I mean, there are clues that we're trying to see how all these things connect, and I understand that, and I know that that's what Burton was going for. Kind of that Crane's playing the type of investigator that Peter Cushing might have played in the Hammer horror films. I get all that. That's fine, but make it a little easier on the audience, please.
Yes. So basically, from what we're seeing, the Van Garrett family had an argument between Mr. Van Garrett and young Master Van Garrett, right? And they had an argument. And then was the Maspeth guy, was the father Maspeth this servant guy?
Yeah, Maspeth was the servant of the Van Garrett that we saw at the beginning of the movie.
Right. Okay. So he was called up.
Yeah.
So now he's witnessing this argument pursue.
Yes. Or yes.
Yeah, whatever floats our boat, right?
Yeah. Make up whatever you want. This is a fairy tale anyway. So as they're riding out, it's quiet. They see a cave. They walk in. Crane's got a gun. He's packing. He's got this flintlock pistol.
Man.
And we see there's candles lit, and there's a woman in like rags or this like a veil over her face.
Wedding gone wrong kind of thing.
Yeah, very much so. Wedding gone wrong. This is kind of funny. He says, I'm making no assumptions about your occupation, which I mean, I like his wit.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. The witch takes Crane, sends away Mazbeth, takes Crane, sits him down at a table, and she cuffs her wrists and restrains herself. She's chained up. Witch stuff, all this black magic. What's gonna happen?
Dad, why are you still in there, bro?
Cuts a head off of a rat and she's making a little witch thing and starts. Says it's going to reach out to the horseman, I guess. This is what confused me, because is she calling upon the horseman to talk to her, or is he talking through her, or is it some other entity beyond?
Right.
It's unclear, but she gets possessed. Her eyes pop out, all large Marge, Pee-wee's Big Adventure style, and says to follow the Indian trail to where the sun dies. And is this movie over yet?
Oh man, like what significance does she have? I mean, I get that. Okay, now we know the Tree of the Dead.
Yeah.
Is that why you were existing? Is that
right? Is it just as a plot device to tell us where to find the tree, or is it just so we can do some witch stuff,
right?
And do this googly-eyed monster zombie witch thing? I'm losing my head here. So they go. Mazbeth and Crane, the dynamic duo, they ride away. They hear a horse, but it's only Katrina. She says that she came along because no one else would help him, and they have this little romantic little moment. Mazbeth interrupts, says, "Hey, come take a look at this." We see the Tree of the Dead. It's pretty cool looking. It's twisted up into the sky, really gnarly looking thing. So Crane grabs a little hatchet and he starts hacking at this root or a branch, and it starts spurting blood on his face, and he just keeps at it.
I felt more sorry for his outfit than anything else. I was like, why are you doing that to your outfit, man?
Yeah, because that's going to ruin it.
It's going to ruin it.
The only set of clothes he has, apparently.
Honestly.
Say everybody wears the same outfit every day.
Every day.
I guess that makes it a little easier when deciding what to wear for the day.
Price, costs, just
right, being very economical.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand that. So he's still hacking at this root, and then the heads pop out. Like at the base of the tree, like of the roots. He says that this tree is a gateway between two worlds. For someone who has been very rational and grounded in science and reality, he is going all out on
the spiritual world.
Yeah, that there are two worlds, and this tree is the doorway. Okay.
Can we see some bifurcated tail?
Oh man. Anyway, so he finds the grave. Very easily. He says that the grave has been disturbed, the soil is loose. So they dig, they find the horseman's body, or his skeleton rather, but the skull is gone. And he says, no Scooby-Doo detective work here. It's
point blank.
Since the head is gone, that means someone has taken it, and that's why he keeps coming back until his head is restored to him.
I should have done calculus before I watched this movie. Because I have no idea how he figured that out.
It's the same kind of move that always frustrated me about Freddy vs. Jason. Is you've got this little crew of teenagers or high schoolers, and they're in this van, and they're trying to figure out why Freddy is coming after them and why Jason is coming after them. Somebody just says, well, maybe Freddy is using Jason to kill for him so he can get strong again and come back. And how did you come up with this?
Wow.
Just out of the blue, But I know they need to move the plot along. But my goodness,
sometimes there's just brain spurts that you just can't control in these movies.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So it starts lightning. Something is going on, and then the horseman launches out of the tree and starts chasing after Ichabod. Meanwhile, Brahm sends two townspeople on patrol, and then we see this creepy, cute little kid lighting a lantern in his house, and his parents are getting playful with each other. All right, it's going to be a good night, so they think. The father sits down at the table in front of the fireplace. These demonic faces burst out of the fireplace, just for a moment. It's very, very subtle. Then the horseman just bursts in, and he starts fighting with the father, and the wife runs and grabs the kid. puts the kid in the cellar. I don't know what you would call it. There's like a little trap door, so he's kind of hiding under the floor. While she's doing all of that, we hear the sound of the father's head hitting the floor, and the sound says that we don't need to even see it.
No,
we know it happened. Right? And she is just standing in the corner. She doesn't go with her child in hiding. She hides the child first.
I don't know why you don't do that. Like, logically, I'd protect my kid.
Yeah,
I'd go down there to protect my kid.
Yeah, not just hope for the best and then put yourself in harm's way by just standing there. Right. I mean, is the room empty? Is there nothing she can throw at it? Throw at the horseman?
Right.
Do something,
Just
man.
something.
This is my favorite shot. We see the door open to this room, and the horseman slowly walks in with his axe in one hand and the father's head in the other.
It's beautiful.
It's a great shot. I love it so much. We've got to give credit to Ray Park, who played the actual headless version of the Headless Horseman.
When we mention horseman, we're trying our best not to say just horseman, because there are two different versions here. Yeah,
we've got to be specific.
Yes.
We've got lots of heads, horses, and birds in this movie,
yes.
And we've got to make sure to be specific. And there's lots of family members that have Van in their name. So this gets really confusing. I suggest taking notes if you want to watch this movie again. But we watched it so you don't have to. And so the wife gets it.
There goes her head. I mean,
this is a great shot too, though. We see it from the boy's point of view, and he's looking up through the floorboards, and the head rolls and lands in such a way that the eyes are locked with his. And
that's pretty intimidating.
Like the head of your dead mother staring at you.
Like, I'd have nightmares.
Oh yeah, I would too. If this wasn't a more legit horror film, I mean, like this is right at home there.
Oh yeah, this was my favorite scene.
But it is mine too, especially after rewatching. This is the one that I like the most, because the kid, we think he's safe. The horseman is leaving, and then as he is about to exit the house, he stops and turns away. We don't know if he hears something, but there's something that catches his attention. And so he goes back and hacks through the floorboards and grabs the kid by the hair.
Goodness gracious.
And then he leaves the house, and we see him putting what we know as the boy's head into this cinch bag that he's carrying the heads in. And I love that he's just carrying this like purse-like bag. Casually.
With heads.
I don't know. It looks like a pretty like fancy bag with a period.
Santa Claus coming to town.
Yes, it's a Santa Claus bag. A little Santa Claus bag.
Santa Claus bag. I mean.
So Brom comes out and he shoots the horseman, knocks him off the horse, and he's trying to reload his rifle. The horseman wounds Brom, but the horseman is not really interested in him. He just wounds him and starts walking away. He doesn't go in to kill him.
He's like, you pathetic little twit.
Yeah. You know? I don't have time to mess with you. Crane comes up and he tells Brom, he says, hey, he's not interested in you. He says, oh, I'll get him. So Brom goes after him again. Crane joins the fight. Crane gets wounded. And then Brom gets cut in twain. Because the horseman is a badass with these two axes.
Oh, yeah.
And somehow in the fight he gets Brom in such a way that he just cuts right through him at the same with both axes at the same time.
In half.
And we see the silhouette of Brom coming into and all the blood spray and everything.
That was a good shot.
It's a good shot too. So Crane faints again. The doctor, Lancaster, is examining him. He says that the wound should have been fatal, but...
Once again, Katrina, back to the rescue.
She comes in with some kind of brew or broth and like, here, drink this. Does it make you sleep? So we guess that she's been treating him for these wounds with her magic, or witch magic, her black magic woman. Crane has deduced that the horseman does not kill at random, that he is controlled by the person who has his skull. Again, on the nose assumption, but he's right, but it just comes to him right away. He has more dreams. Crane is a boy, sees his mother and the Iron Maiden thing. In shock at his reaction, he slaps his hands down on some other kind of torture device near him that has these little
spikes
on it.
It's like a chair with spikes.
Yeah, the chair with spikes, and so that's how he gets the little scars on his hands. But so now that we know how he got those scars,
wow, that actually happened.
Yeah, but what does that add to the story? I mean,
I'm dumbfounded. I really
it's
don't
kind
know.
of cool in a way. I mean, it would be different if it had some kind of payoff, like the little scars on his hand. Just that maybe it's representative of the emotional scars and trauma of seeing, like in his dream, he sees his mother in the Iron Maiden thing, and it opens up and the mom pops out and there's just blood gushing out of it, like the elevator doors in The Shining.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we know that his mother died at the hands of his father or her husband, we don't really know, and was accused of witchcraft, and this is how she died. So maybe there is some reason there or motivation for him to kind of do away with these old ways of punishing people.
Right. And depressing memories that just haunted him, basically. And I guess it was Burton's way of telling us, all right, well, now that we have closure with this, let's move on to the more important topic of the...
Thank God.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
This tells you how interested I am in this movie at this point. In the show notes, all I have is the word romance for this next scene. Crane wakes up, and Lady Van Tassel is watching over him. We haven't seen her all that much. We saw her at the party towards the beginning, but she's been pretty much on the periphery for since then. He decides to, in classic detective fashion, takes the pieces of paper and writes everybody's names down in town, and he's trying to draw these connections. And meanwhile, as he's talking through the possible conspiracy, he's thinking about the doctor, the reverend, the notary, the magistrate. This is starting to sound like Clue.
Yes. You done it.
Professor Plum, Mr. Green.
With the X.
With the X. And so he's drawing the connections, and he's making notes in this little book. We see little key words as he comes to them, so he'll write down secret, conspiracy, points to, Baltus. And then as we see the notes, it's pretty much saying the conspiracy points to Baltus. And so,
well, I'm glad that you just created that sentence.
He even tells young Masbeth, he's like, I feel like he said that he's going to start by making a list of everybody in Sleepy Hollow. I think we're getting really close. You're going to start with the entire town, but you're getting close. Okay.
Jeez.
So he looks at the Van Garrett's and Van Tassel's family tree, and we know that there is a connection of some sort. Masbeth and Crane go to the notary. They find the will of Van Garrett that was made in the beginning, and it names Widow Winship, the pregnant woman, as the beneficiary. And there's also a marriage certificate. This is what Crane puts together, is that the four town elders were the ones who covered up the marriage and the pregnancy. So Steenwick conducted the marriage, Lancaster attended the woman, the magistrate gave protection of the law, and Hardenbrook concealed the documents. So this is how the conspiracy fits together.
Right.
And that makes sense. That's fine and dandy, but it has I give
Just
zero shits about it.
I'm glad this happened, right? But you know what?
So Jonathan Masbeth, the father of young Masbeth, who was the watchman or lookout, had served as witness to the marriage, and so that's why he was killed. And so all of this leads Crane to suspect that the Van Tassels would be the ones to benefit from this, and that Baltus is his prime suspect. And Masbeth notices under Crane's bed that there's this evil eye, this drawing, this little doodle. I like the word doodle.
Yeah.
And he thinks that someone is casting spells against him. Later we'll find out that it was for protection. Good old Katrina up to her tricks again.
No.
So Crane and Masbeth notice, they look out and they see somebody in a cloak carrying a torch going into the woods. And so they sneak up and spy.
Like, ooh, are we about to see the Headless Horseman? Whoa. You thought.
No, you're about to see some sexcapades in the woods. We see Lady Van Tassel having sex with somebody who is not her husband. We can't see his face.
Some young dude in town.
just rolling in.
Right.
Long red hair. Could be Fabio. She takes a dagger. She pulls it out and she cuts her hand open, and it's bleeding. She smears the blood on his back and everything.
And then he proceeds to lick her hand.
God.
Oh, I'm glad we're getting bloody here.
not only is this like 12-year-old child watching all of this,
right?
But it's like, why the hell are you doing this? So we're already a little suspect about Lady Van Tassel.
Right.
So they leave. They go away. Crane returns to find that Katrina has destroyed the evidence that he had against her father. And she says, oh, if you knew him, you wouldn't think all this about him. And so he's just saying, hey, this is what the evidence says, and I'm just investigating, but I need to check it out. They quarrel a little bit, and so she gets mad. And so the next day he goes to see her, and she won't come down. The lovers quarrel.
Oh, my gosh.
Lady Van Tassel, this is a weird scene. Lady Van Tassel's cooking and just kind of making chit-chat with him and says, oh, you never asked me how I hurt my hand, which would have been polite. In fact, you've tried not to look at it. I know you saw me.
Oh, I cringed so hard.
Uncomfortable. And Baltus bursts in and says that the town is in ferment. That Hardenbrook has hanged himself, and so they've had it. They're going to have a big meeting at the church tonight. Baltus asks about his wife's cut, and she says, "Oh, I was cooking, and let's go pick some flowers."
Okay, all right. There's actually vegetation. There's actually flowers growing. Okay,
even though there's mayhem in this town, and people are getting killed, and that we've got to meet as a town to discuss what to do
with these killings. You're going to pick flowers.
We're going to pick some fllowers because we got some time.
We'll get some picnic while we're at it.
We might as well because it's a lovely day. It's overcast. And dark and it's stormy all the time, and make it to the church on time. So the horseman appears, and Baltus freaks out, and he runs to the church and says the horseman has killed his wife, and tells Katrina, he's killed your stepmother. And everyone takes shelter in the church, and the horseman he's on his horse, and he's outside. He can't enter. Like he throws his axe at the ground, and it just turns to ash.
Right.
And Katrina starts doing her spell. She's down doodling on the floor. And
whatever that witch shit is.
I guess she just happens to carry a magic marker with her wherever she goes.
In her skirt pocket, I guess?
It's always got to be at the ready, you know. The townspeople are shooting from their windows. So I guess that in going to this town hall meeting at the church, everybody brought their rifle.
Yeah, I mean, take up arms, right?
Yeah. Baltus, he kind of has a little freak out, and he grabs somebody's pistol, and Dr. Lancaster says, your four friends played you false, but we were coerced. And as he's about to say who coerced them, Reverend Steenwick grabs a giant cross and kills the doctor, clobbers him over the head with it, and then immediately Baltus shoots the Reverend.
So it's a triangle of death here.
And we see his Jeffrey Jones, the Reverend, his wig comes off, and we see he has this long red hair. Baltus climbs up to like the second floor, and he's screaming. He's there's a conspiracy here, and I will shake it out. The horseman has craftily taken a fence post, wrapped rope around it, and he hurls it through the window behind Baltus, and it impales him, and it harpoons him through the chest.
Like directly dead center.
Perfect
Beautiful
aim.
Accuracy.
I mean, it's a great shot. It's a great effect.
It's a beautiful effect.
Especially when the horseman takes off and pulls
out the window.
Pulls Baltus out the window and dragging him. And as he is dragging Baltus gets stuck in a fence, and he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still breathing. Yeah,
even though he's just been impaled through the chest. With a giant fence post
after falling.
Yeah,
from a window.
Out a window.
He's still alive. It's impressive. I want to be his age and have that kind of health.
I would have. See, what should have happened is he was pulled through the window, and then he lands on a car.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Because like we said in our Chucky episode, everybody that falls out of a window or off of a roof lands on a car. Anyway, so Baltus his head is stuck in this fence, and the horseman comes back around with his sword, chops his head off, takes the head, more of the same. Meanwhile, in the church, Katrina faints, Ichabod style. Now she's in a coma. Crane goes to her and is talking to her while she's unconscious, and says goodbye. So he goes to leave. Young Masbeth tries to stop him. And Crane does have this great line that it's villainy wears many masks, none so dangerous as the mask of virtue. That's some Shakespeare shit right there. That's his little zinger as he leaves. So I guess he's heading off back to New York. He's going to miss his bird that he freed.
Oh, well.
He'll just find another.
Yeah. That's so seriously, though. Did you name it at least?
Right. So all the way back to New York, he's going to be thinking about where he's going to get a new bird and what he's going to name it. And regretting having gotten rid of the one that he already had, that he freed.
I wish that he had named it Fred, just so we could have our own little sequel for Fred. And then at the end of the sequel, we see that Fred just catastrophically lands into a window and drop dead Fred.
Poor Fred.
Fred the bird.
That's gonna be a Vericon video project.
Yes.
It's the unofficial sequel to Sleepy Hollow about Johnny Depp's bird. What became of him? Did he find a mate and reproduce? Or did he?
Honestly,
drop dead Fred. Fred doing it like the pigeons.
Oh man!
Oh, but there's a bird theme throughout our entire catalog of episodes so far. We've got the release of doves and Robin Hood. We've got this. Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far away from here. Oh, okay, all right. I think we've been laughing so hard we're hyperventilating and getting delirious. So let's move on. We've got to finish this movie. So Crane gets in the carriage, he goes to leave, and as he's leaving, he looks out the window and he sees the body of what we think is Lady Van Tassel being taken off of the cart, and the hand falls to the ground, and so he sees the cut in the hand, so he's like, yep, well, that's her.
Right.
So he's looking at the spinny thing with the bird on it, but he gave it to her. He gave it to Katrina, so did I miss something? Did he take it back?
I guess he did, like, at the last minute, just, oh, that's mine, sorry.
That's fine. Oh, yeah, so you're going to come, you're probably going to die. I'm going to just take this back.
What a guy.
I don't know. He's looking at he spins it, and then he has an idea, and so he turns his buggy around. He also learns that he looks at the book that Katrina had given him, and that symbol that we've been seeing that we thought was a spell against him, it was for protection,
right,
for loved ones.
Like, wow, plot twist.
So we've got to get back to Sleepy Hollow. So Ichabod
Crane
he returns. The return of Ichabod Crane and Fred. He goes to the morgue and examines Lady Van Tassel's body. There's so many syllables, it's exhausting.
It's too much.
He examines her body and notices that the cut on the hand was done post-mortem. In the next shot, we see Katrina. She's awake, just hanging out, and then Lady Van Tassel just comes in, hello, dear, or whatever. And she's scared. And then we cut to this big windmill, this big gothic windmill, nod to Frankenstein. Lady, I'm just going to call her Lady. Lady's got Katrina captured, and then she does this little spell, and she summons her, quote, Dark Avenger.
Okay.
My Dark Avenger. To come for Katrina. And like every great movie, this is where the villain explains their entire plot.
Yeah.
From beginning to end, every detail, no stone unturned, because the hero is going to die, so I might as well tell you my entire plan. And so we learned that the body, what we thought was Lady Van Tassel, was actually the servant girl that she never really liked all that much, but it ended up serving a purpose anyway.
Whatever.
And we learned that her family was evicted off Van Garrett's property, and Katrina's father took over their residence, and then Lady Van Tassel and her sister lived in the woods. She was one of the girls. She was the girl that snapped the branch that drew the soldiers to find the horseman and then kill him. And so she witnessed his beheading, the horseman's beheading. In that moment, imagine this 5 or 6 year old girl offers her soul to Satan to have the horseman rise up and avenge her.
Does she even know what selling a soul means at that age?
I would say no. I would say no. And just to think that would go through a child's mind. Now, granted, she was the one that got the horseman killed.
Right.
She snapped
the stick.
Yeah.
Bitch.
And so, I mean, if anything, the horseman should be coming after her. But
right.
But she's got his skull, so she controls him now.
She's desperate. She wants a husband. Might as well take the horseman.
And I love it as she's telling the plot to Katrina. She says, "What a goose!"
Like what?
It's like, oh, how silly! What a goose! And so it all boils down to Lady Van Tassel will get everything once Katrina is finally dead. How nice for her. This movie still has 17 minutes.
we're winding down. Count down.
We learn that the witch living in the woods that did the seance thing and was possessed and her eyes popped out, that was Lady Van Tassel's sister. That doesn't matter.
Not at all.
We could have not had that witch, that crone
at all. I would have better off heard that she went off, got married, had a family, and lived happily ever after.
Yeah, I would have preferred that as well. Or I would have preferred to have not heard about her at all.
At all.
Why could she have not been just a lone girl
staying in the woods?
Yeah,
by herself.
Right, and having to have the stick. Didn't need the sister.
Nope, at all.
That's our next project. So after we do the unofficial sequel to Sleepy Hollow with Fred the Bird, we are going to do a special edition of Sleepy Hollow, recut.
Recut, yes.
And we're going to use new and improved graphics. We're going to include some dewbacks and Jawas in it.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
More stormtroopers.
Some CGI effects. With
absolutely.
Lasers.
We're going to have some pew-pew lasers.
Yeah.
The Headless Horseman now
sound effects
is going to
off the walls.
And we're going to digitally remove the sister from the story.
Yes. It's going to be like Phantom of the Opera on steroids, guys.
Phantom of the Space Opera.
Space Opera, yeah.
And so young Masbeth is creeping in, and he's coming up on Katrina and Lady Van Tassel. Lady Van Tassel sees him and says, "Oh, you're just in time to have your head cut off."
Oh, wow.
And she says it so casually. And not only is it a bad line, and it's the worst line in the movie.
It's the worst.
Me. The delivery is garbage. It's all garbage. Everything is garbage. I love Tim Burton, but my goodness, this has been difficult.
I think he had some whiskey before he went through this whole scene.
Probably a little more than that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We see that she has the horseman's skull, and that he's coming. And Crane arrives. He goes into the windmill and saves Katrina. And this way in, Lady Van Tassel says, "Watch your head."
Okay, like, wow. Like, I mean, she's standing right outside, right? They're just walking in because she's the villain, but we're just going to casually walk in the windmill anyways. Screw you.
She's obviously having way too much fun with the head play. The heady word play.
The heady. It's so heady.
And the horseman is making his way up through the windmill. He's doing some like Batman 89 shit in the cathedral.
Yes.
Because he lassos this giant cog and it pulls him up, into
I was
the
like,
windmill.
that's Batman.
It's such a Batman move.
That's definitely Batman.
So in our special edition of Sleepy Hollow...
Platinum, people. This is platinum.
We're going to replace the head of Christopher Walken with Michael Keaton. Yes. Michael Keaton will now be the Headless Horseman.
We'll have the Batmobile instead of the horse. And the bat signal, and it's going to be amazing.
Ichabod Crane versus Batman.
Oh my gosh. I have hiccups.
You have hiccups? Yeah. We are almost done. For all of this, where the horseman is making his way, chasing Crane through the windmill, I just wrote in the show notes, stunts. Katrina and Crane, they jump onto the sails of the windmill. The whole thing is ablaze. They make it off just in time before it explodes. And I just have Crane, Katrina, and Masbeth escape on carriage. Stunts.
More stunts.
More stunts. Oh boy! So we probably have about 15 minutes left of the movie, and so they make it to the our trio make it to the Tree of the Dead. Lady Van Tassel appears on horseback. So the whole time they've been, being pursued by the horsemen and everything, and jumping on this horse and that horse, and swashbuckling and everything. They must have taken the long route to get there, because, unless Lady Van Tassel knew a shortcut. She shoots Ichabod in the chest. He's not dead.
He's not dead by some miraculous thing in his chest.
What happened?
What was it?
Was it the book in his pocket?
No.
That he needed to have near his heart for protection?
From Katrina? Oh my gosh. This is way too much for me.
So, Crane is struggling. Lady Van Tassel, Mazbeth sneaks up on them and clobbers her with a branch. Crane grabs the skull of the horseman just before Katrina is about to lose her head, and he's like, "Horseman!" And he just hands him his skull back. Or what is it? He throws it to him.
He throws it to him, yeah.
Yeah.
And then this whole entire series of effects takes place with this skull changing into a face.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly stuff. It's like a reverse decomposition or something.
Right.
So skin grows on it and shit. And Katrina and Crane embrace. And then when Christopher Walken's back, my God.
What a guy.
And he jumps on his fake horse and rides off. Or he
pulls up the lady.
Yeah, he grabs the lady on his way out. And he pulls her up on the horse. And she comes to. And he's kind of looking at her like, oh.
Hey, baby. You want to go for a ride?
And then he kisses, bites her on the mouth. There's all this blood.
That must have felt great.
And Walken just doing this, rah, rah. That's the only thing he said is in this movie. Is rah,
rah,
rah.
Like,
so he roars some more.
Yeah.
Takes off on his fake horse, which turns into a real horse. And they jump into the tree. They disappear into the tree.
Her hand.
Yeah, her hand is left,
reaching out.
As the tree closes, her hand is still exposed. I mean, that's kind of a neat little thing.
Yeah.
7 minutes left, still, folks. All right, are you still with us?
Counting down the seconds.
It must have a super long credit sequence, because the next thing that happens is now everything is bright and sunny.
We finally see the damn sun.
We see the sun for the first time. The sun has shoneth itself upon dreary Sleepy Hollow and has restored it to its former glory, as if it had
any glory.
So 20 years ago, before the horseman was killed, was it sunny in Sleepy Hollow?
We may never
Was
know.
it Sunny Hollow?
I think that goes for our 4th special edition.
Yeah, okay, we're still... I hope someone out there is keeping track of all these suggested edits that we're going to make, because you can hold us accountable later on.
Yes.
So they're riding on a carriage, Katrina, and I almost said Charlie.
Charlie?
Well,
I mean, he looks like a Charlie.
He does, actually. Definitely not an Ichabod.
Or Johnny? Or Charlie? Johnny?
Johnny Crane.
Johnny McJohn.
So now we're going to... Okay, for special edition, it's Johnny Crane.
Johnny Crane! Back at it again.
It's a Mortal Kombat character. Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
Johnny Crane versus Goro. Shang Tsung. Flawless victory.
Monday Madness.
So the music now is very happy. Crane brings Katrina to New York City with him. It's snowing. We have beautiful choir music.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Got a wide shot of the city, the busy, bustling city. And they're happy and they leave. And we are done, folks. That is Sleepy Hollow.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how I feel about this right now. Like, we're actually done?
Yeah.
Wow. Holy crap.
In an hour and 50-minute movie, we covered it in about an hour 30.
That's a new record, folks.
The duration of our conversation is often longer than the running time of the movie.
Right.
Or thereabouts. I think that we're going to come away pretty short this time.
So please, cherish this.
Cherish this, folks. About this movie that I didn't really... normally for our most recent episodes, I've been trying to create like a little bits of music and stuff, the themes that accompany stuff. But this one, besides the first few bits of the main titles,
that was basically it.
That was it. It was like bum 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 bum
right.
bum 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 bum. That's it. Everything else, I remember nothing else about the music in this movie. Nothing. And it's Danny Elfman. I love Danny Elfman. Just not memorable at all.
Do you have any take-backs from this film? Anything that's worth dwelling on in your passion for this movie.
Well, okay, even though we spent the last hour and a half shitting on this movie, I will say that I still like it for its production design and its ensemble cast.
Yes.
The costumes by Colleen Atwood, the props, the set design, everything about the look of this movie is really stellar, and it is definitely it has Tim Burton's fingerprints all over it. Like it's so identifiable as one of his projects. But I will say that I did glean more insights from watching it in preparation for the podcast. Like I was forced to better understand the plot and to appreciate more of what Burton was trying to do, and basically mixing the tale of the Headless Horseman with like a mystery thriller thing, so that we're trying to solve the puzzle along with Johnny Crane. Right. But other than that, I mean, I would definitely recommend watching it just for those reasons, for the special effects and the design of the film. But for the plot, I definitely recommend not thinking about it too much.
Yeah. Don't dwell on it too much. Don't overthink it. Don't be stressed about what is actually going on in this godforsaken place. I would just personally focus on the Headless Horseman and look at seeing the heads being cut off.
Yeah, you want to see the Headless Horseman and his horse cutting off heads in Sleepy Hollow, and then have Ichabod Crane
doing whatever he's supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Right.
Give us that. Don't give us this soap opera. It's like an entire season of a soap opera condensed into...
The Young and the Restless, literally in Sleepy Hollow. Like, I've never seen a better version of Young and Restless in a Halloween. Let's be honest.
Oh, Young and the Restless. When I was a kid, my grandmother would keep me most of the time, and we would watch her stories on TV. Is what she called soap operas. The stories. Time to watch my stories. And so we would.
Oh my!
So we would watch Gone with the Wind. Guiding Light, Bold and the Beautiful, Young and the Restless. I don't think General Hospital was one of them. There was another one I can't remember. Anyway, so that's Sleepy Hollow, folks. Next week we're going to be talking about American Psycho with Christian Bale,
the one and only,
Willem Dafoe, Reese Witherspoon, Jared Leto. It's a great cast.
So many.
It's based on the book by Bret Easton Ellis, and this movie will rock your socks off. It's a very quotable, very fun movie, and we are going to have loads to talk about next week. Super excited to dig into one of my favorite Christian Bale performances. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll have a little bit more blood and gore for you coming up next week. And if you have any questions or feedback for us, send us an email, VericonVideo@gmail.com. You can leave a message for us. Vericon Video Hotline, 312-620-5560. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Find us there. Let us know what you think of the show. Support us and spread the word about Vericon Video by going to our Patreon page and also our homepage, VericonVideo.com. We have a link there to our TeePublic store where we have shirts and stickers and all that fun stuff. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and we will see you next week to chat about another exciting movie from the rental era. So long, everybody.
Peace out, guys.
Goodbye, Vietnam! That's right. I'm history. I'm out of here. I got the lucky ticket home, baby.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jenny.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle. Goodbye.
Do take good care of yourself.
What is this, your farewell speech? Going home. Have a good trip.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I have to go.
Adieu, auf Wiedersehen, Gesundheit.
Farewell.